Hey folks, welcome to my desktop. I'm just going to introduce you to a new program I just downloaded. It's transcripts, so I was able to correct some typos by the transcript itself, and even it allows me to eliminate all the words, which I wish I could do for myself, but here we go. So there are compression, poco, a gantry actually, resist changes, the surgical strike, and upwell stuff. It's really fuzzy, but there's some interesting hints being dropped. Let's go check out the actual roadmap. They drop a bunch of stuff. I've listed all the highlights in this channel, of course. Give me a sec. So, gantry shield from gantry, not poco, gantry, from 10 million to half a million, which is great because trying to pop those took forever. Well, on Singularity, the shield regen was active for gantries, but on Tranquility, if you looked at the Z kill, it looked like the shield regeneration was turned off for gantries. But still, they were annoying. You had to war deck it. But apparently now you can, according to the Twitch, not the article, but you get suspect when you attack it, which is great because that means you can attack it without having to war deck, which is awesome because they are an annoyance, and I don't think they were intended, obviously, like CCP intends anything. Okay, so compression becomes, even the porpoise gets an indy core, which is cool. That's great. Compression will, they're taking away the waste of compression from what it was when they introduced it in that massive cluster F. So compression will be non-waste. It'll be instant. It'll be just right click. It can even get your teammates to do it, but it's not going to be like you have to load the module and click it and wait for the cycle. No, it's going to be instant, and fleet mates can do it from like 200 clicks away. They can just use that if the compression module is active, they can do it themselves. Like a Hulk mining way can just instantly right click and compress his ore in the ore hole. I'm assuming it's the ore hole. But yeah, I'm assuming that's the case. The increasing the capacity of the jet cans is doubled. There was nothing new in the Twitch about that. It was kind of like obvious, but they did mention it just as an aside for one sentence. The armor plates by 50% and shield extended by 100%. They talked a little bit about the meta of the battleship being they wanted to be the anchor of the, a transition between the capitals and the subcaps. They wanted to be kind of like the anchor of the subcap. I don't have a chapter on it. You can listen to it. I think I'll try to find it for you guys if you're interested. But to me, it was just fluff. The resistance modules had half the resistances they lost returned. If you can remember, surgical strike, it wasn't like half the resistances. It was more like 20% reduction of that, but it was only like it was a very small amount. It wasn't something, oh my god, I just lost all my resistances. It was a nerf, and they kind of unnerfed it by half. So yeah. Anyways, I'll let you listen to that stuff. There's a Oracle jump portal. They talk about jump harmonics, but it's so unfocused that there's not really anything you can get your fingers into as to what he just meant by saying, yeah, we're thinking about jump harmonics, which is like, oh my god, they know about jump harmonics. It's like, oh, I actually know it's a word. Wow, okay. But yeah, nothing really about that. The upwell mechanics, it's interesting. They did say core mechanics and structure modules but what they're going to change, it's interesting. They drop a few hints and combine two words like faction warfare and environment and modules, and you're like, and iHubs, and you're like, so that combination sounds interesting and probably something they'll talk about at Fanfest. We'll see. And of course, my I told you so moment, they're getting rid of quadrants, which is duh, because it was the successor to their website subdirectory of updates where you could scroll through the updates from past to future. And they got rid of that when they introduced quadrants. And of course, just 2 years later, they've milked the quadrants to the point where we're not buying it anymore, and they're getting rid of it. So there's a fluff piece about that, but I wasn't interested in talking about it or making you guys listen to it. So let's go back to here's the blah 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 blah. I know, right? Yeah, whatever. You're welcome to read it and go listen to the entire Twitch stream. It's the host is I can't stand the the gist. If you listen to it and if you can stand the ass kissing, it's obvious that Goon and their pets revel in acting like they are the fan base, and that CCP listens to them, and what they it's so but it's kind of ironic in a way that the host makes himself so slimy that listening to CCP is actually refreshing, So it's like I've never had that experience before, but it's freaking hilarious. It's like, wow. So that was the gist of it. I won't force you to listen to all of it, but which one am I? Why do I have two? Okay, let's get one. Okay, this is the first time I've ever used this, so it's interesting. Of course, I've only got three. Yeah, I don't have. Apparently, this is a beta. I mean, a demo. Okay, so I've got chapter set up. So I started it. There we go, pocos. So let's start with pocos. So here we go.
Some unexpected changes for sure, and some expected changes. And I think we can kick off simply with the small interesting change. Swift, do you want to explain what happened in the last, last few months?
We've been watching Bjornby stream. Of course, we watch all of our Eve streamers. There's TVs around the office. And, if you haven't been following along, he has been put a renewed focus on poco warfare and stuff like that. And so we wanted to kind of tweak that up a bit because it's a system that hasn't been super updated in quite a bit of time, and it's unfamiliar to some players. And PI is a huge part to EVE Online, right? It's involved in so many different aspects of industry. It's income for some players. It's single player, just passive income for some other players. So we wanted to give it some love. So what the teams did, and this is pretty massive, is they kind of changed some of the mechanics coming in the next month or so for deploying the customs office gantries. So the gantries, if you've never had an interaction with them, good on you. But for those that have had interactions with them, they can be very frustrating, especially when you want to have combat surrounding them. And so the goal of the designers was just to make the combat or the combat rewarding and engaging and have a point to the whole thing, and just kind of freshen that up a little bit. So the EHP, and this is probably the biggest change for the gantries, the EHPs of the gantries, which is the structure that goes on before the
technical difficulty there. Anyone else having stream problems?
I hear loud and clear.
All right, we're going to keep going. It doesn't matter if they can't hear. They'll just see our excitement. So the gantry HP is dropping from 10 million, which is where it's at now, a huge amount of HP, to 500,000. And shooting the gantry now, which is the thing, again, that goes on before the poco goes online, especially relevant in high sec. you'll be a suspect flag instead of a criminal action, right? So no one can play any games with their gantries now. If you win the fight on the poco and you hold the grid, bam, you get your poco down, and there might be even a bigger fight over the gantry instead of just content ending right there. So that's like just the tip of the iceberg there, but it is really, really exciting if you've done any PI stuff, or if you, like me, have been involved in some high-sec warfare for pocos. So I'm really excited about that, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
All right, so that's the gantries. Yeah, the if you're not aware, CCP must have been embarrassed by the fact that people were putting down gantries and just leaving them there to pretty much be douchebags. It was the main culprits were, there's only a few of them, but the main culprits of doing that, putting the gantries down, because you have to war deck them to get rid of them, right? In it, and you can't use it as it prevents you from putting up a poco that's functional, right? So of course the griefers are doing that. So it was of course the high sec war deckers, the pirate splinter groups, you know. So yeah, they must have seen that and been embarrassed by it, because Bjorn B was probably mentioned it. I tried to look, but I couldn't find anything recent by Bjorn B on the subject. I'm sure they'd seen it and go, oh, you know. So yeah, that's that. Let's scroll on to the next one. Chapter compression. Here we go. All right. These are great, by the way. I tried to do as much corrections as possible. All I have to do is hold E and click, and I can correct a word. So that's helpful. I did some of that. So
Compression is going to be it just expanded for everyone. It's really a strong concept that we want to deliver on, and make sure that you can get a taste of compression early as well, and that it scales well into being something that's really critical, mission critical for veterans and ALSEC as well. So we want, usually, like at least these days, we're trying to create career paths for players and make it so that you learn like the single step and then you take another step and a further step. So we've done this now, taking into account the feedback that we received, and actually giving the porpoise compression as well. So we're looking at the compression for porpoise, oracles, and orcas, and it's going to be instant. Like it's going to be the same functionality that we were used to with OR. It's going to be more elegant in the way that it's a fleet boost ability. So now if you're within range of an active indy core, you whether it's a porpoise or oracle, you'll be able to compress based on that indy ability. So oracles will be able to compress moon, gas, and ore. Porpoises will press gas, and orcas will compress moon more and no gas alone.
The purpose will do gas and asteroid.
Yes, yeah.
Orcas and rorquals will actually compress gas, ice, or.
See how cool the oracle is.
Yeah.
But I think overall, the UX of this is much improved. It's actually way better than I like it more expanded than we thought was possible. And also, I think we're cramming in a nice UI UX update for the compression window itself. So we're very happy with this.
yeah, sorry about that. Problem with my mute button. All right, long standing. I need to get a better microphone, but whatever. Better than a headset mic. Okay, so the host, I cut a lot of this stuff out because the host is just acting like the article doesn't exist. You know, like he's just taking all the talking points from here and going, I heard a rumor that, and he goes on the next talking point, and you're like, and he's like, yeah, the player base was really like talking about this issue a lot, and then what do you say about this? And it's like the next talking point in the freaking bullet points of this, so it's like cringe-worthy. That's why I can't stand talking stations or talking heads in stations. Yeah. Just. Ugh. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, it makes CCP look good by him acting so venal. All right, surgical strike resistances. Here we go.
To kind of up all capital survivability.
So in context, it went from like 100% surgical strike hits, and it gets down to 50% of previous resists. And now you're bringing it halfway back up to what it was, so like 75%-ish.
Yep.
Yeah, when the surgical strike update hit, all the resistance modules had their resistance impact reduced by 20%, which is quite massive. It also had some other changes in that update as well. But like a huge, as Tyler was saying, like a huge part of this was essentially this was like in the previous state, you could have.
Sorry about that. I paused the video. That's the only time I paused the video. And it takes about 40 seconds of me realizing I'd paused the Twitch stream that I was using this program. So, yeah, it's not actually, while I've got the time, it's not actually a huge issue. I made copies of the old resistances compared to the new, and it wasn't horrible. It was like, oh, okay, it's not huge, but yeah, I'm sure in the meta it was a big deal. So, anyways,
Force auxiliaries that were almost impossible to kill, and they were kind of a bane all over the place, not just in the large fights, but the medium and small ones as well. And so, yeah, surgical strike fixed that. But as the Eve players sit with a meta for a certain amount of time, they can kind of game it, min max it, figure out what's broken, figure out how to abuse things. So to keep things fresh, not only with the battleship changes like surgical strike being rolled back, so instead of the initial 20% that it lost, it's now down to 10% from the original like 2 years ago. So basically, all resists are getting resistier. I think that's a technical term. That's why they have me here.
all right, on to the next one. Yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff to talk about, but it's basically the host rabbiting the talking points of the article. There's nothing. It's not even softball questions. There's one softball question at the very end, but other than that, it's just the host acting like he just thought up these questions, and it's like, okay then. So you don't get anything interesting. There's no pushback at all on anything they say. So yeah, it's basically it's a huge waste of time. But there are some interesting things talked about like this. Here we go.
We will mostly be focusing on some core mechanics and structure modules, but we'll go more into detail on this at a later date once we get closer to that April date. But yeah, it's definitely really exciting, and will shake things up.
Definitely. We've already identified that how structures impact their environment is not always optimal. In nullsec, it's kind of like a lot of the combat has become predictable and maybe defensible in some ways, especially with carriers. These are all topics that have been identified in a really solid thread that we took to heart. We went through it. We thought about the things that we wanted to do on the roadmap and kind of wanted to get completed, and we simply reprioritized. We felt that this was more important to tackle at this moment than those follow-up changes, which is something that we talked about in previous blogs, for example, iHubs. but when we need to change direction because of urgency or kind of powerful reasoning, I would say, we're happy to oblige, and this is where we see that we need to solve this holistically and improve it anyway. We have faction warfare citadels that kind of are out of place, and we have this iHub concept, and it all needs to work well together. So this is an opportunity to kind of really create like a bit of a longer term roadmap for structures and how they affect the world around them. And that's something that I'm very interested in talking about and Fanfest, but also in the near term.
Interesting, huh? I found that bit a bit more revealing than it could be, especially because they dropped the word environment. So environment, defensible. I don't know what he meant by carriers. I think he said carriers back then. I corrected this transcript to reflect that, but it could have been something else, something I'm not familiar with. But environment, faction warfare, citadels, and iHubs. And you push it together with the core mechanics and the structure modules, and you start to think about how that could affect. It's an interesting thought bubble if you put it all together and you kind of mull it away and you go, well, it's going to be interesting at FanFest to see what they've actually talked about, because we've seen roadmaps from CCP before. CCP Seagull, in fact, comes to mind immediately, of course. I think I've talked about that before. So what they're going to do about it, I don't know, but I'm guessing it's something to do with faction warfare and trying to integrate different parts of the game, like having a grand unifying theory almost, which would be interesting. But remember, you always have to remember, CCP has promised the moon at repeated intervals and then just dropped the idea and not talked about it again. Like a planetary ring moon mining. That was all the rage over a decade ago, probably. But yeah, stuff like that, So yeah. And that's about it. Where was that bit about the battleship? Right. Yeah, this is interesting. Give me a sec. Where does yeah, let's try this out. It's an interesting talk about their, and again, like I said, this could be just a pipe dream of theirs. But check this
way
out.
to introduce things rather than on their own in a way. And the second point is I would encourage everyone to or if you want, play the new adventure. We are using all of the bells and whistles for the new player experience. So there's graphical updates, there's amazing scenes and dungeons that kind of show you what the other dungeons might look like. Like all of that stuff is really us putting our best foot forward.
Yep.
And kind of imagining what the world would be with all dungeons looking like that, all NPCs looking like that. I think that would paint the picture of the vision that we have for the game going forward.
And like amazing,
So yeah, that was interesting, and plus, I wondered at the time when I was listening to it. I'm sure it was unrelated, but it was how is this new kind of filament thing they're rushing towards with the Hoovian thing? Is that going to have anything to do with it? Let's see, where's their NPE thing here? Right, this is what they're talking about in this transcript. Where is it? NPE. Oh hell, where are they talking about it? Was it at the top? Yeah, this thing, new player, mystery mining adventure. That's okay. I'll definitely want to check that out myself. It's been a while since I tried out their continuing iterations on the NPE. It's been a while, so that's what they're talking about. Just to fill you guys in. All right. No, battleships. I did mention that. Did I? Battleship.
Looking at making battleships great again.
How do I get? Nope.
Is this true? What are you going to do to battleships?
Should we tell them or?
Yeah,
we
it's
just
like,
end
what
the
do you,
stream
what do
right
you,
now and
what do
let
you,
them wait
a
for-
little
no,
birdie told
no.
me. It's like, shut up. All right.
We have a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, here we go.
mean, battleships. We all love battleships. I mean, battleships were like, I mean, they're some of the most versatile.
Blah blah blah. Okay, Alt and where is it? Blah blah blah. Where's the? It was the anchor. It was like something. Yeah. Yeah. There it is. Okay. Just a lot of bloody fluff.
Battleships
Okay.
great again.
Nope.
Is this true?
Alt there.
And like the cost to build, not necessarily the is cost, but like the material cost. And so, yeah, just adding like a ton of survivability, adding a ton of maneuverability. Battleships are my favorite. I can't wait to see people just slugging it out and just abandons, rogues, everything.
Yeah, it goes to our anchor. The battleship is our anchor for it. It's that kind of transition point from subcaps to capitals. That's why we added the extra reaction. We wanted to make it like, here's a actual transition. This is what we balance around. So we don't want to mess with that composition. We really just want to make sure that everything else fits both under and above. So this is really important for us to really hammer that home.
But wait, that's not all. I think is probably like what we put.
Yeah. Interesting. When he said maneuverability, I'm assuming it's CCP speak. That they reduce the plate. They increase the plate hit points by 50%. That means you'll be able to add a smaller plate. That'll give you more maneuverability, that kind of thing. So when they're saying a ton of maneuverability, it's like saying their Whovian adventure added loads of new players to EVE Online, and Whovians were talking about EVE, and it's like, yeah, no, they weren't. They didn't even spend a couple of days talking about it, and they were on other things, and bye-bye. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just marketing speak, most of it. So, there you go. You're welcome to listen to all of it. But those are the highlights I thought about. If you're a nullsec blobber, I'm sure you can find other people to listen to than me. Please. So, yeah, there you go. Done. Thanks for listening, guys. And have a good one. Probably not, like, I was thinking of trying Angel Extravaganza, or sorry, that's the mission, lol, the gala thing, but I'm just totally mad. I'm playing other games right now, so yeah.